Hello, hello, hello. I know it's not quite 10:30 yet, but I want to welcome you. I'm Dr. Deb Butler. For those of you who don't know me, I see a lot of people are coming on. Welcome. And I know a lot of you may not be familiar with this format, so I'm going to help you with the format a little bit and show you how to do it. And we're going to have some fun for the holidays here. And just while I'm sitting here talking to you, I want those of you who are on here, and I believe this is going to be a big full class. So, Linda Allen raised her hand. Hi, Linda Allen. I'm not going to, I don't think you maybe meant to raise your hand, but I'm going to teach you all about that. So, what I want you to do first, for those of you who are now on, I'm going to welcome you again. People are still coming into class. Welcome to class. I'm your teacher. Um, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see that there's a Q&A. And in that Q&A, what I would love for you to be doing for me right now is if you can just tell me if you can see me and hear me. And I'm going to put my Q&A up so I can see. So, okay, Wendy said she can see me and hear me. Fantastic. Heather, yes, works. Patricia Brandt, Jennifer, Christine. I know there's so many of you. And I see that there's some people that are raising their hands, but I'm not going to pick on people yet. But I am going to talk about it. So please refrain from raising your hand. But in the Q&A, you can ask me a question right now if you would like. And all you have to do is write in there, just like you're writing the that you can see me and that you can hear me. Okay, Katie. Hi, Katie. Love you. There's a lot of people on here I know, and there's a lot of people in here that I don't know, but hundreds of you signed up for this. So it is going to be one big class. All right, so it's 10:31, so I'm going to start. Okay, and so I've got somebody in the chat session, which is okay, but if you can go to the Q&A, that would be the best, even though I can see the chat right now, but I probably won't see most of it when I'm talking. And once I get talking, I get carried away. Okay, so what I would like you to do now is if you wouldn't mind writing in the Q&A how you heard about this webinar. I would love to know that, and or how you know about me. And also tell me where you're from. I just want to see where some of you are from. I mean, I know you're from all over the place, but tell me. So I'm just going through the Q&A. I see a lot of people seeing me. Okay, Christine says, we love your podcast. So I'm thinking you saw me, you heard from me from the podcast. So, okay, Faith, podcast. Awesome. Faith, Massachusetts. Hello. Did you get snow? We just got a bunch of snow. Podcast, New Jersey, Denver. Oh, you found from the Life Coach website. Awesome. Podcast, Facebook. Linda Allen. Linda, is that you? Linda Allen, is that you? You found me on podcast. Is that how you? I mean, on my Facebook, you first started out. Very fascinating. I think you did actually. Okay, I'm just talking to all of you because some of you I know you on here. Okay, the podcast. Oh my gosh, Angie says she's been listening to my podcast for about 2 years. Hello, Angie, and thank you. I hope you enjoyed being with me. I really thank all you guys for all of this because, I mean, this is really amazing to me. And the only reason that I really wanted to do this today, the only reason is because I just want to talk to you and maybe see some of your faces today and maybe answer some questions for those of you who can't work with me, don't want to work with me. Hello, Ellen. There's some of my clients on here, but I really think that some of the concepts that I teach may be easier if you see me in person and you see me with writing. It might help. And also, I'm thinking I'm going to give you an opportunity to either ask questions or possibly be coached. But if you want to be coached, I want you to make sure that you got all your stuff, all your ducks in a row, and you know how to do this, because I don't want to waste a lot of time trying to get technical stuff. So if you decide that you want to get coached, I will give you an opportunity. And the way that we're going to do this is you'll raise your hand and I'll pick somebody and then I'll pull you up as a panelist and we'll see how that goes. And if I can't get you as a panelist and see you in person, I might just be able to talk to you. But the most important thing about this is I want to get information to you and answer questions. So before I start, does anybody have any particular question that you want to ask me about anything before I start? I'm at the end of my Q&As. There's like 100 questions. 100 people have already told me where they heard from me, where they're from. Oh my God, somebody's from New Zealand. Oh my gosh, you're like in tomorrow already. Or I think you might, well, I'm not sure. I don't get my time zones, but I've worked with quite a few people in Australia, and I guess New Zealand is kind of the same. Anyway, I know you're probably in your next day, so you know how great tomorrow's going to be already. But if you see my sign here, it's the best day ever today. Okay, so what I have here, I'm going to just show it to you on my huh, my pad, is I want to welcome you to the thinner peace mindset. And for those of you who are listening, I know that's what you're attempting to do. And what I want to do today is to help you with it. And what I also want to do is I want to help you use the holidays to help you. So for sure, some of the people that ended up hired me specifically so that they could go through the holidays. And I want to commend those of you who are working with me right now, because there's a lot of people that are waiting until January to decide to want to work with me. And I really want you to know that no matter what, this is the perfect time for you to start looking at yourself. And I want to give you some tools on how you do that. So maybe the goal isn't to lose weight during the holidays. Maybe the goal is. But what I would love the goal for you to be is to be more mindful of what the heck is going on inside of you. I think that's the most important thing. And the beauty of why I love using food so much, why I chose food, why I chose weight, isn't so much I want to tell you what to eat and all that stuff. I just think it brings up so much stuff. So, like for me, it brought up everything that I ever had a problem with. It just brought it all up, and it helped me navigate my life so much better. And because I started learning these tools around menopause, I became very passionate about menopause, because seriously, it was the best time of my life and perpetuated what I'm doing right now. Like, I would not be sitting here in front of hundreds of you right now if it wasn't for my body and menopause, and for me striving to lose weight. I would not be sitting here. And I know for clients that have worked with me in the past or who are listening now, I know the same thing is happening for you, is that you're learning so much about yourself by what you do with food, because food has so much to do with your emotional environment, your atmosphere inside of you. And being able to understand that mindfully and compassionately is probably the best gift that you're ever going to be giving. The best gift that you're always going to be able to give yourself. And I think that if you're looking for a gift to give yourself this holiday, let's make it the thinner peace mindset. What do you say? So what I want to do is I'm going to start and teach some tools. I'm also willing to go longer today to coach some people if it so looks that way. But to begin with, I just want to teach some things that are basic, and yet I get the most amount of questions on every single time. So let me move my Q&A over just a little bit here, and let me go over to my next points. So to me, there's 4 things that you have to have the centerpiece mindset, and I really do believe you have to have it. And I know all of you have heard this, because most of you, or a lot of you, have heard me from my podcast. So I know you have heard me say this, but I want to try and show you in a different way that you can understand it. And I think the best way to do that is by being able to either answer questions or coach people specifically on what I'm teaching you right now. Because that's really what I do with my clients, is that, oh yeah, I know my physical hunger scale. Well, I got news for you. I don't think you do. And most of you who say you do, don't do food journals. So probably one of the biggest things that happens when somebody hires me is they start to do food journals. And I think the reason that most of you don't want to do food journals, at least this would have been my reason, is I was a Weight Watcher for 30 years. I did food journals whenever I wanted to lose weight and be on track. I would watch I would write what I ate and how much I ate and what my points were. And for me, that was just an ability to be able to make sure that I had so many points for whatever it was I was looking for. And, overall, I learned some things from weight. I learned some things from all the diets that I've been on. And I want you to know that so have you. And you can't use it as ammunition against yourself. Like, oh my God, I've done it so many times and I failed so many times and I'm just going to fail again. That kind of stuff, because I hear it all the time. I believe that everything that you've done up until now has brought you here to understand something you never understood before, which is it's not so much what you're eating. You can't find the right diet because there's no such thing as a right diet. There's no such thing. The only thing that there is such a thing of is what the heck is going on inside of you when you put something in your mouth when you're not hungry. That's it. And when you can figure that out and you can mindfully manage it, you will achieve a thinner peace mindset. And for most of you are probably around menopause, before a little bit before menopause, maybe after menopause, but around this menopause stage. I want you to know that the best thing that ever happened to you is that your body's saying to you, I've had enough of this. That's basically all it's saying. And you know what? If you want to be at a healthy weight, you're going to have to figure this out because I'm not putting up with what you've been doing. That's it. If your body could talk, that's what it would say. And I'm thinking, like, if you want to go into your 70s and your 80s and your 90s, you can't keep doing what you've been doing. You just can't keep doing it. The only thing that I want you to learn how to do is how to listen to your body and take care of it because it talks to you. Okay. So let's talk about physical hunger scale and emotional hunger scale. So I think you might understand the concept of the physical hunger scale, and I'm going to share my screen with you and just show you my emotional hunger scale and my physical hunger scale. I just want you to look at it with me while I'm talking. Okay. So I'm hoping if somebody just wants to put the Q&A that they can see my emotional hunger scale and my physical hunger scale. I would appreciate it. But for those of you who have been listening to my podcast, you can get this book that I'm showing you right now by going to drdebbutler.com/change. And you can get this whole book that I'm showing you about the emotional hunger scale and the physical hunger scale. The most important thing about this physical hunger scale, the -10 to a +10, and the reason that I've come up with it like this is I just want you to realize that there's a lot of room for hunger and a lot of room for fullness. So when you say, I'm hungry and I'm full, what the heck does that mean? The hunger scale helps you decide because some people say, I just always eat when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm full. But here's the deal with me, with counting points, is the only time I would eat when I was really hungry. So I would never eat at a -2. I would always wait to a -6 or a -7, and I would always eat to a +6 or a +7, and I could lose weight that way. It's just what I chose to eat, when I ate, and all of that, and what my points were. But here's the thing. I don't think our bodies were meant for that. I don't think our bodies were meant to eat gobs of food at one time. And I think what happens is that we use it for the wrong reason. So I came up with this hunger scale for you to know that a -2 is where you start and a +2 is where you stop. And as I start working with clients, sometimes we can change these numbers. But I think going to these low numbers makes you stay connected to your body so that you can make decisions later if you want to say, well, I'd rather wait to a -3 and eat to a +3. Maybe you can do that too. And as I teach more and more concepts about eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full, all of that is possible. But for now, can you eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full, -2 to a +2? And if you can't, that's what we want to talk about next. Because what a lot of people will say, I know I'm full and I just keep eating. So it could be, I know I'm a +2, but I keep eating anyway. How many of you have said that before? And the awareness of that is probably a very important thing for you to note. Because when you're doing that and you know you're full, that's when you're getting into the emotional hunger scale. And the emotional hunger scale does not have to mean that you're sad or that you're even angry. But what it could mean, if we're looking at the emotional hunger scale, which is still the same type of scale as the physical hunger scale, goes from a -10 to a +10. But the difference is that now that we're, instead of feeling our physical body of fullness and emptiness, now we're into the emotional body. And our emotions and our physical sensations all live in our bodies. And the most important thing that you can learn is to differentiate those two and to take care of both of them. And I think what happens is that once you learn the physical hunger scale and you see that you're at a +2 and you keep eating, that's when you start going into the emotional part of what's going on. Now, for many people, they cannot do this alone and they need a coach. And I'm being really honest about that. But I also know there's plenty of people on this podcast that do it. So I know that it's possible too. But here's the thing, it's like you don't have to feel mad, happy, sad, or glad in terms of emotions. You can feel desire or urge. And urges and desire, I put under emotional hunger scale, because a lot of you don't see it as that. And I want to be really clear that an urge is just a negative emotion. It's this feeling that you feel inside your body that makes you want to eat. It could make you want to shop. It could make you want to do a lot of things that may not benefit you. And that's the most important thing about urges, is that if you feel an urge and you feel this desire to have to give into it and you don't want to, that's when it's a problem. If you are giving into urges and getting negative results, you have a problem with urges. You have a problem in the negative emotional landscape of the emotional hunger scale with urges. And I'm going to tell you how that works, because it's important, because many of my clients will think that they're in a positive emotional state, emotional hunger scale, like in the plus numbers, when they're overeating. And so I think that's a really good example to be able to show you of how you can be in negative emotion having a good time. Because a lot of you are in social situations, or you're at holiday parties, or there's something going on where you think, hey, I'm having such a good time. And I'm having such a good time, I'm going to a +10 and I'm not going to eat fuel food. It was so much fun. There's nothing fun about that. And as soon as that happens, there's something inside of you that is asking to be filled, that is not going to give you what you want. And that's the negative hole of the negative emotional hunger scale. And I just want to look at something real quick on my screen to make sure that I'm recording. Okay. So I want to give you an example when you start using food journals, because I'm hoping that the first thing that you decide to do when you get off this call with me is to start using the food journals that are in my companion book. And you can just get one, print it, and just start using it every single time for every single day. Now, the purpose of a food journal is not so much to see what you're eating. The purpose of a food journal is to see why you're doing what you're doing by looking at your numbers. Okay, so like if all your food journals look like eating at a -2, stopping at a +2, and fuel eating, my guess is you're losing weight at you're at your ideal weight. And maybe you have a joy food in there too, or maybe you have 2 joy foods in there that are planned, that you knew you were going to eat them and you enjoyed every bite of them. But in order to get anywhere near that, you have to start where you are with what are you doing? And that is really the most important part of a food journal, is what is really going on and what are these urges doing and what am I thinking that are creating these urges. Because here's the other thing. All emotions, where do they come from? They come from your mind. They come from your thinking. And so an urge, if it's a negative emotion, means that it comes from a thought. It means it's coming from something that you're thinking about the food that you're ready to put in your mouth that you don't want to be eating. And that's what you have to be on to with yourself is, what am I thinking that's creating this negative emotion or urge? And then once you know what you're thinking, then you have an opportunity to be able to manage it, which is the difference between an unmanaged thought that creates an urge and a managed thought that allows an urge to go through you without giving into it, without reacting to it. Does that make sense so far, what I'm talking about? So I'm talking about food journals. I'm talking about being able to write down your physical hunger scale anytime you eat, knowing that you're going between the twos, but whatever it is, you're writing those numbers down. Now, the emotional hunger scale, when you're looking at a food journal, actually goes into the thoughts and the comments. And the most important time to be able to look at your emotional hunger scale is when you've gone beyond a +2. That's when you want to start wondering what's going on here. And one of the biggest reasons for going beyond a +2, one of the biggest reasons is going to be in your emotional hunger scale, and it's going to be an urge. That means it's going to be a thought that creates this desire or urge to do something that's going to give you something that you don't want. And I think that's what most of you are doing. And you can step out and say, I know I've done that. But it's not as helpful as if you're writing it down, looking at it, and then thinking about it. What just happened? And what just happened doesn't mean that you have to do it in the moment. Like, you might go through that moment and believe and go through it and give into the urge, eat to however far along the hunger scale you go. But then you have another option to go back and to look at it. And that's probably the most important piece that I can share with you right now, is being able to go back and look at it, because that's where the learning is. So please let it be known that many times you can't do anything about it when you're in it. You're just running through it. You're giving in to the urge. You're eating. But when you go back and look at it, and if you decide to use this famous word of mine, self-compassion, instead of punishment and judgment, you will learn something. And that learning is the most important piece of the puzzle. What happened? You may not know it in the moment, but by the next day, you will have time to go back and objectively look at what happened. And objectively almost means that you're out of the situation now, so you can ask yourself in the most compassionate way, sweetheart, what happened? Because what wants to happen in your mind is not compassion. What wants to happen in your mind is, doggone it, you did it again. We just talked about it. What the heck is your problem? How many times do I have to tell you? And it's this beat up session, which just makes you feel worse. And if you make yourself feel worse instead of figure out what happened and calm yourself down, you're going to do it again. And you think you're not going to do it again because you just beat up on yourself and you just took a belt to yourself and you just beat yourself up. It's like, okay, that's it. You'll never do that again because I just beat the hell out of you up. And, it's like kind of like in early childhood education. How well does spanking and belt hitting help? It doesn't. We think about in early childhood, and I talk about early childhood a lot because I used to do it. And the way that you talk to children when you're trying to redirect their behavior isn't much different than what I'm talking to you about. I mean, you don't sit and punish kids and scream at kids and yell at kids and tell them they're a piece of crap. You just don't do it. And I know all of you on here who are mothers would never do it. And yet I know that most of you that are on here do it. This self-compassion piece, being able to look at yourself with self-compassion, is probably the biggest tool that I'll ever teach. And it's why I say it after every single podcast, is to be very, very kind to yourself, because it's the key. And I want to read to you a little bit of a definition from Kristin Neff, because Kristin Neff is one of my favorite authors for self-compassion, maybe one of the only ones, at least. I think she really is the one that did the research on self-compassion. And, it's so fascinating because we all know what compassion is, but most of us don't think of self-compassion. So I just want to read a little bit about what she says about having compassion for oneself is really no different than having compassion for others. Think about what the experience of compassion feels like. First, to have compassion for others, you must notice that they are suffering. If you ignore that homeless person on the street, you can't feel compassion for how difficult his or her experience is. Second, compassion involves feeling moved by others' suffering so that your heart responds to their pain. The word compassion literally means to suffer with. When this occurs, you feel warmth, caring, and the desire to help the suffering person in some way. Having compassion also means that you offer understanding and kindness to others when they fail or make mistakes, rather than judging them harshly. And finally, when you feel compassion for another, rather than mere pity, it means that you realize that suffering, failure, and imperfection is part of the shared human experience. So self-compassion involves acting the same way towards yourself when you're having a difficult time, fail, or notice something you don't like about yourself. Instead of just ignoring your pain with a stiff upper lip, like most of you on here, most of you, it's like just stiffen up and forget about it. It's okay, forget about it. With the stiff upper lip mentality, you stop to tell yourself, this is really difficult right now. How can I comfort and care for myself in this moment? When you hear me on the podcast, how many times do I talk to myself to tell you to talk to yourself about calling yourself sweetheart? It's what you would do for somebody that you loved. It would be so easy for you to do it with your kids or anybody that's having a hard time. And yet it seems like the way ended up, what we learned was to do the exact opposite, to get ourselves to do things that we really want for ourselves. And we just get the opposite effect. So practicing self-compassion and really reading the book by Kristin Neff is something that I highly, highly recommend. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now and just bring you guys back to me, or I'm going to come back to you. Okay. And I see that somebody's raising their hand, but I'm not going to answer questions yet. So you can save it. If you're going to raise your hands, just hold your little horsies. Okay, and I have some questions here. So I'm going to just look at this before I go on. Since I've talked about the physical hunger scale, the emotional hunger scale, and self-compassion, how to use it, and food journals, why to use it. And here's something that Heather asked, and I think it might be helpful. She says she struggles processing emotions because I still have kids at home, and sometimes I can't disengage. Plus, my circumstances involve a child with ADHD and anger issues. Okay, so here is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Right now, Heather believes that she can't do both at the same time. And that's where I want to tell you where you could change that by realizing that you can handle your kids and you can still handle your emotions too. It's the same thing. It's like, hey, what if I'm in a situation and my kids are going crazy and we're sitting down to eat? I can't concentrate on what I'm eating or what I'm putting in my mouth because I'm too concerned about what's going on with them. And I hear this a lot with social situations. Oh, I'm having such a good time, or I'm so involved talking to somebody else that I'm not mindful about myself. That's where you have to stop thinking like that. Because the truth is you can do both. You were wired to be able to do both. You can be connected into yourself at any given time, no matter what else is going on around you. you can take care of somebody else and still take care of yourself. So I know that's not probably the best answer, but I think it's a good answer because it really helps you understand that what's out there is not your problem in here. So I don't care if it's kids, I don't care if it's aging parents, I don't care if you're at a meal and having a great time. You can stay connected to yourself, and it's probably the best gift I'm going to give you is you're going to stop telling yourself that you can't. Seriously. Let me read another question. Hmm. Okay. So here's something that I think is interesting. Oh, but she says, but I'm feeling, oh, so Heather says, but I'm feeling so frustrated in the moment. So how do you do it? Okay. So we just, Heather's the one that asked me about handling emotions with with her kids. And then she says, but she feels so frustrated. Here's the thing. It's like you let yourself feel frustrated. That's it. It's like sometimes you're just going to feel frustrated. And when you feel frustrated, can you allow frustration to go through you without reacting so harshly or treating yourself in such a way that you don't get a positive result? And I want to say more about this, but when you have strong emotion, being able to allow it to go through you is probably one of the most important things I actually teach my clients. It's like sometimes that's just what you're going to feel. And you can feel frustrated and still take care of yourself. And the way that you can take care of yourself is compassionately understanding. I know, sweetheart, it's hard right now. You have to mother yourself the way you're mothering your children. I wish I could have a better answer for you, but that's really the truth is when you know you got this, when you know that you got you, no matter what. Okay, now I want to talk a little bit about the model. Well, I'm going to show it more than I'm going to talk about it. But for those of you, I'm hoping most of you understand the model, that you have a circumstance, which is, in fact, I'm going to show it to you here, and then maybe we'll talk about it. So far I've talked about emotional hunger. And oh, I want to say one more thing about emotional hunger and urges. Let's say that you're at a party and you're having a fantastic time. You're having so much fun, because this is what I see in food journals. So in the thoughts and comments column, they'll say having a great time, and they give themselves the emotional hunger scale like a +5 or a +6. But when I look at their food journal, they had like a fuel, like it started out with fuel / they ended up giving into some urges, so it became joy, and then / it became fog. So the types of eating, the way you put your types of eating in your food journal, which I'm not going into that much today, but the goal is to fuel. Fogging is always going to show up when you go beyond a +2. So let's just say on this physical hunger scale, you went to a +5. Okay. So let's say you started at -2 and you stopped at a +5 and you put your emotional hunger scale to +5. It cannot be that way. And the reason it cannot be true that your emotional hunger scale was that positive was because you were eating way beyond a +2, which means something else was going on. And this is where urges come in. And if you want to know how you're actually feeling emotionally, don't eat past the +2, and you'll notice that this great time that you're having out on the outside, as soon as you feel that you want to stop eating, it's not going to feel good. And that's what I'm talking about the negative emotional hunger scale. Sometimes you can't feel it because you're filling it and then telling yourself what a great time you had when you went to a +5. You didn't give yourself a chance to feel it because you ate it. So if you want to start feeling some of these urges when you're overeating, if you want to know how strong they are from a -10 to a 0, don't eat when you're at a +2. And then you're going to start feeling how negative it feels not to eat. And that, when you can learn how to allow that to go through you and not eat it, is gold, and it's a Christmas gift. And the only way to do it is to start practicing it. And how do you start practicing it? Like when we're through with this call, you start with your food journals and you start looking at it. Now, this is what I coach my clients on the most. And it's not like you're going to get it one time and it's all going to be, you're probably not. But you practice it. That's why you have to keep doing food journals. And that's why you have to keep looking at your emotional hunger scale versus your physical hunger scale. Anytime you go beyond a +2, there's negative emotion lurking. You need to see it. And that negative emotion may not be like you're angry right there. You could be in a very positive situation, but inside your body's going, we want more. We want more. It's delicious. You ever thought that? It's so delicious. And it's so delicious, that thought creates an urge. It creates desire. How strong it is, if you want to know how strong it is, don't eat. And you'll see exactly how strong it is. How bad do you want it? And sometimes you can tell by how much you eat in your physical hunger scale. So if you go to a +5 or a +6, my guess is that negative emotion or that urge was strong. And sometimes the emotions will go similar to how much you overeat. So I always see, like, if somebody only goes to a +3, probably the negative emotion wasn't that strong. But if somebody goes to a +6 or +7, I'm guessing the negative emotion was stronger, and I start looking for it and asking questions, which is what you can do for yourself. So that's what I want you to be thinking about too. So when I talk about the model, we talk about C is for circumstance, and a circumstance is a fact, and it will trigger a thought. But circumstance are facts, and they are neutral, which means anything you put in your C line, you have to be able to prove it in court. Like, for instance, I got news for you. It's snowing here. I can prove it in court. It's a fact. What I think about that snow goes in the T line. How I feel about the snow doesn't come from the snow, the C. It comes from what I think about it. Now, I happen to think it's beautiful. So I kind of feel giddy right now because I love it. But 2 days ago, we were on a short holiday. I was with my husband, and I heard it was going to snow. And I had this webinar today. And my thought was not the same. I became really anxious and nervous because I thought I might miss my webinar. That was the thought I had as it started snowing. And so my feelings about snow change according to what I think, which is what's so fascinating about the model, is that our thoughts and our feelings is a vibration in our body that's caused from a thought, is never from that. And we like to blame everything on this. What your husband says, what your wife says, what your children say, what they do, what's going on in politics. They're all C's. And that means they're neutral until you decide what you think about it that creates your feeling, and your action, it then comes from that feeling, and the actions are what create the effect or the result. And I'm telling you this, that when you understand that your thoughts and feelings come only from your head about anything that's going on, then you have taken the power. And that's the most important thing about the model, is who owns the power, the C or the T? News is it's you and what you think. And everything that I do when I'm coaching is based on the model. For me to be able to take a flashlight into your mind and show you your thinking, because sometimes some of the hardest things to do is to see your own thinking. Because here's the truth. For those of you who have done many sessions with me or have listened to me or are coaching with me right now, you know that some of the things that you think are facts. That's a problem. Okay. So these are the 4 things that I wanted to teach you. And now what I want to do is I'm going to try. Okay. I'm going to start here with a question. And then from there, I'm going to start looking at my participants and let you raise your hand. But right now, Michelle asked me, can you talk about being kind to oneself, especially when not seeing any weight loss progress? I think it's a great question because here's the thing. The C, I'm just going to show you this. It's good for everybody. Because I think the number on the scale causes more problems with most of my clients than anything. And of course, the number on the scale is neutral. So the only thing that's causing them so many problems is their brains. So Michelle, you're on it. So if we were going to do a model on weight, the C is the number on the scale, which is always neutral. So I'm assuming Michelle is saying not seeing any weight loss progress, meaning not losing weight at all. See, I never know, because she's telling me right now, Michelle is telling me her thought, and she probably thinks she's giving me a circumstance. So here's the thing. Not seeing any weight loss progress is a thought. And I'm going to say, let's just say the number's the same. Let's say the scale is the same number. I'm going to assume maybe that's what she means. Okay. Now she has a thought. I'm not seeing any progress. Now you could do the circumstance. You could put not losing weight. That could be a fact if it stays exactly the same. But you calling it that you're not making any progress is the problem, the thought. So first I want to show you that. And then I want to show you how to use self-kindness to change your model. So I'm not seeing any progress with my weight. My guess is that creates a feeling. And my guess is the feeling is frustration or anger. If you want to be kind to yourself, let's say angry, you're mad. A lot of people I know get angry. Now, here's the interesting about what happens in the A line with that number on the scale and your thought that you're not making any progress. Is that my guess is that when you feel angry or frustrated, how do you end up treating yourself? Because my guess is you say nasty things to yourself. Tell yourself it's not working. And the biggest thing that I see in the A line when you're angry or frustrated about the number is you don't stick to your protocol. So what I mean by protocol is that however it is that you're deciding to eat, you're not doing it. So either you're overeating, or if you're planning joy eats, you're not, or you're doing something above and beyond what you know doesn't work and you start doing it. So I'm just going to say not follow what works, or just overeating, or rewarding self with food because of pity. You see this A line? Crazy. But that's what happens with just something as neutral as the number on the scale. You start thinking things that create no progress, because the result is always evidence for the thinking. You see that? So when you talk about being kind, the first way that you have to be kind is you have to catch it. Like, wait a minute. What do you mean you're not making any progress? How can I help you, sweetheart? You could change the thought. So this is a very unintentional model. It's like you're not really being mindful about what you're thinking because you think you're reporting the facts to yourself when in truth, the truth is the scale may not be moving. The optional thought that you're thinking is you're not making any progress when in fact you might be making some progress of some kind. You might be starting food journals. You might start becoming aware of things that you never knew before. You may start eating between the twos for the first time in your life. You may be seeing emotional hunger that you've never seen before. You may start being able to manage your mind around thoughts that you never even knew you were thinking. And the scale may stay the same. But as soon as you tell yourself you're not making any progress and it makes you angry or frustrated, you actually start doing a lot more negative things that will make sure you don't get progress. That's the problem with stinking thinking. But you don't know you're thinking it. You think you're reporting a fact. You think you're reporting a circumstance, and you're not. I hope that makes sense, because then you can decide. You can say to yourself, when you see yourself, like, you have to be really, really mindful about what you're thinking about the scale. So like with most of my clients, they're like looking at the number a lot and reporting thoughts all the time, and we're looking at them because sometimes the scale doesn't move. And you got to decide what you're going to make it mean, because it's a tool. So if the scale's not doing something that you don't want it to be doing, which it has a way of doing, you get to decide what you want to think about that so you can get what you want. So here's something that could be kinder and more intentional once you see this is, oh my gosh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry that I said that. Like, I didn't realize how hard I was being when I just said I'm not making progress. It just sounded like you're reporting the news, right? But now that you can see the model, it's like I would say to you, Michelle, what else can you think about that number that might help you? And that's where you start being kinder, is you create something that feels better than anger and frustration, because anger and frustration is not coming from the number on the scale. It's coming from your brain. And your brain is not being nice because you've taught it that the number on the scale is something to either punish you with or congratulate you with. And the interesting thing about when the number isn't doing what you want and you don't like it, in your A line, you end up rewarding yourself with food. I'm laughing because I did it for so long. But there's a way out. And that's what I call freedom. And that's what I call the thinner peace mindset. So what I want to do now is I'm going to look at who's on this call right now. Over a lot. Okay. And what I'm going to try to do is, if one of you would like to talk, I'm going to see if I can do it. I can't do the phone. I don't think I can do the phone call in listeners. I can do the ones that I think that are on computer who have names. I think. I don't know. So what I want you to do is, for one, if you would like to be coached or ask a question and you want to come up and be brave, raise your hand. And the raise your hand is in the bottom on the browser. Anybody? Anybody want to come on and say hello to me? Do you know how to raise your hand? Okay, Rena, I do. I just did it. Okay, let me see if I can. Oh, a lot of people are raising their hand now. Okay, great. All right. So let me see if I can bring Rena up. I'm going to allow her to talk, so she should be able to talk to me first. Okay, Rena, you can probably talk to me.
Okay, I'm here. Can you
Okay,
hear
I
me?
hear you. I'm going to bring you up. I'm going to see if I can bring you up as a panelist.
Okay.
And I think I just hear you. Okay, there you are there.
Here I am.
1 minute. I'm going to get you on in a minute. Okay, now I'm allowing you to start your video, so you should be able to turn your video on.
Okay. Oop, hello.
There you are. Hello. Hello,
Hi.
Rena.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. Tell me how you know about me.
Oh, well, I first found you on, heard about you on Brooke's podcast,
Okay.
and then I deep dived into your podcast, and I love it.
Wonderful. Okay, so tell me what I can coach you on today.
Well, it's just this breaking out of the pattern. Like,
Yeah.
always the best of intentions of like, okay, like my weak point would be like from 3 to like, 7 o'clock when it comes to dinner time. Like that's when the household gets really crazy. And and just dealing with the household craziness, just like chomping on nuts the entire time or cheese. So just like, and I understand intellectually, well, you just feel the emotion, but what it just doesn't translate to what does that actually look like when I'm just feeling the emotion?
It means that you're feeling the urge to want to eat.
And you just like, but then like it's like that's a fine line between white knuckling it and
It
then
is.
allowing it.
It is. It is. But it doesn't feel good.
No,
So
it doesn't.
there's not going to be any way around making it feel good. But what it is the difference between, like, I think we can model it because I think it'd be interesting to model. Are you familiar with model?
Yes,
Good.
yes.
Okay. So let's just, because I just want you to know, and I want everybody to hear that you already have a thought about this 3 o'clock to, did you say 3 o'clock to 7 o'clock?
Yeah.
Okay. So you
Like
already have
around,
a thought about, that time period.
right.
You think you're reporting the news to me,
Right.
right? So I would probably take you there first,
Okay.
because just that thought alone is so poisonous. And the difference between a circumstance and a thought is exactly what I teach. And you already told me a thought, but you thought you were telling me a circumstance,
Right.
right? So let's just
Right.
see where it takes you,
Okay.
right off of that belief. How long do you think you've been thinking that?
Since I had kids.
How long is that?
So they're in a they're like 11 and 14. So maybe at least 10 years.
Okay. So, Rena, I'm just going to put you here as a
Okay.
C, eating. That's a fact.
Excuse me. Yes.
Uh-huh. And we could even put,
Yeah.
okay, so this is a fact.
That's a
Rena
fact.
eats between 3 and 7 p.m.
Okay.
Or Rena is at home between 3 and 7 p.m. I'm just
Right.
trying to make it as factual as possible, because the most important thing when we start is how to do that in our brains,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because our brains think you think you're reporting things that aren't being reported factually. So what do you think about that?
It just that looks like how do I feel about that? It just
What do
looks
you
so.
think about Rena eating between 3 and 7
How do
p.m.?
I
What do
feel
you think
about it?
about that 3 to 7 p.m. hour?
It's a rather a large time frame to be
I know,
eating.
but what do you think about it?
What I think about it, that's awful.
But
That's what I think about it.
okay, you think, but what's awful about the 3 to 7 p.m.? What's going on during the 3 to 7 p.m.?
Because I feel like I'm managing my kids, or I'm driving them, I'm managing the homework, and then also like I know that dinner is going to be late because kids come home later, or whatever activity they have, so it just feels like a hustle and bustle that I can't yeah, it just feels like a hustle and bustle, and I'm just like trying to not lose my cool
Okay.
in the situation.
Okay. So would you say the feeling is like hustled?
Yeah, and just anxiety, like, oh no, I hope, it's not going to be another late night of homework because, it's bad for my child's sleep patterns, it's bad for my sleep, those are the other thoughts and feelings.
Okay. So this is my thought. My
Okay.
thought is you think you have way too much to do.
Yeah, that is a valid thought.
I think that's what you think about this.
That I have too much to do in that time frame. Yeah. Yeah.
How am I going to get it all done? Oh my
Yeah.
God, here it comes. It's 3:00. Ah!
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
This is not the problem.
Okay. I know it's my thought about it, right?
Yeah. And so, like, looking at it, it's like you've told me a lot of things, but I think if you get to the bottom of it, is that probably as this time starts creeping up, your brain starts going into gear and having all kinds of thoughts that make you really feel strong negative emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. And another feeling that I get is like, oh no, now I have to stop my own work because I work from home as well. I'm like, oh no, I didn't get enough done in my work. So now I have to go on to the second shift of, taking care of the kids after school kind of a thing.
Okay.
And so that makes me anxious as well.
Right. So you have a lot of thoughts about this time period. I
Yeah.
mean, I just want everybody to hear this is that you started this out with you thought you were just telling me a fact about Rena, like this is my problem, 3 to 7. It's just a really it's oh whatever it was that you said, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you thought you were just saying that's the fact, now help me with it.
Yeah.
And what I want to help you with is what you think about it and why you feel this way about it. Because my guess is you don't have to do all that. You don't
Hmm.
even have to stop working. You could keep working. So why do you stop working? Why do you go do
It's
all those things?
yeah. Because, I'm a mom and I want to take care of my kids and I want to feed them and help them with their homework and
Okay,
drive
so
them to
like
all
you
their
want
little
to do
activities.
it.
I know it's a choice, right?
Well, first of all, in this, it doesn't feel like that because you think you have to do it and it's really hard.
Hmm.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
Or I feel like it's part of the general mommy mindset of like, oh, it's always crazy and hard and yeah,
It's always crazy and
and
hard.
that's just the way it is.
And that's the way it is. Okay, so at least you realize now that this is not a problem. And this is.
Yeah.
And you have kind of zero choice about this. You are who you are. It is always going to be that time when it's that time.
Mhm.
And if you're eating, and that's just the way it is, and it's neutral.
Mhm.
And your anxiety or this feeling of hustle is coming from of all the thoughts that run up in your head. I like that one. And you believe that you have to do it. You believe you have to stop working. You believe you're right in the middle of something and you can't do it anymore. That's all the stuff you tell yourself.
Mhm.
Right? I'm just going with one thought right here, but we could do a million models off of everything you just told me because you have
Right.
so many thoughts about it. But that's why this is such a problem.
Yeah.
So in the A line, what do you do when you think it's always crazy and hard and that's the way it is and you feel really anxious or you feel like you're hustling? How present are you for your kids?
How present am I?
Mhm,
Is that what you said?
mhm.
I'm hoping that I'm present, but I can see
Right,
like but I get, I can imagine that I get anxious and resentful, not of my kids, but I get angry at myself. That's what.
right. So when you're inside yourself and you're going on and on and on all about this, and probably feeling a little sorry for yourself. I
Yeah.
probably could put self-pity in here, yeah? Feeling sorry for yourself, but probably also less present because you're more in your head about how horrible this whole thing is.
Yeah.
And yet they're your kids, and you're like
Yeah.
doing things for them because you just said you want to. I mean, they're my kids. I want to. I love it. And this job you have, I guess you want to work it. I guess you want to work because you're doing it.
Yeah.
And I guess you want to do it up to a certain point in time so you can go pick up your kids.
Yeah.
Tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, yeah, no, it's true. Because like the whole thing of like my work is that it's flexible, and I like the idea that I can stop when,
Oh, you
you know,
like the idea. Well, that's
right? And
nice.
I love it. And
Oh,
then,
you
but then
love it.
also,
Okay, well,
but then I also get, anxious as well. Like, oh, but I didn't finish enough work.
it's a choice.
Right.
And you're choosing thoughts that are not helping.
Yeah.
That's all. So my guess is in your A line, this is where eating comes in.
Mm-hmm.
You're not hungry.
Right.
So if you think about, if you think about the A line of actually being less present with your kids, maybe even less present at work when you're starting to think about 3 o'clock coming up.
Right.
With work and kids, and you're feeling a little sorry for yourself.
Right.
And then you're eating when you're not hungry. And there's probably a lot more stuff in there too, in this A line.
I'm sure.
About what happens.
Right.
Right. But the result, basically, my guess is just looking at your A line is you are making it harder and crazier just by what you're doing.
I'm making it crazier for myself.
By what you're doing.
Right.
And you get to make proof evidence for your thought. It's always crazy and hard.
Yeah.
Because our thoughts, we always create evidence for our thinking. And that's why it's so important to see it. And you didn't see it. You thought you were reporting a fact, which I'm so glad you brought it up, because that's what I was saying in the beginning, is that we can't tell the difference in our heads, but we think we can.
Right.
So
right. And as we were saying that, I'm like, I know that.
Me too. I mean, listen, I'm in the middle. When it's me, I don't think I'm any better.
Yeah.
Right? Strong emotion makes it very difficult to step outside and look.
Mm-hmm.
But what I always teach my clients is how to do that. It's hard, but this is harder.
Mm-hmm.
Creating results you don't want and thinking you're powerless.
Mm-hmm.
That's worse.
Yeah.
So the eating is not the problem. The problem is, of course, as always,
the thought.
And in the end, you're still going to have to feel negative emotion without eating. I mean, you're going to have to learn that. But sometimes we add so much stuff to our stuff that we don't even know what our stuff is.
Right.
So, if you were going to do more of an intentional model, I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now because I think you get the picture.
I do. I hope.
About what I'm talking about. So probably saying I hope isn't going to be helpful.
I do.
Because you do.
Yeah.
And you will.
I do.
Because now you know that that's optional and that everything that you're telling me are things that you've chosen to do.
Mm-hmm.
You have a job that's flexible so you can take care of your children. You have children that you love, that you want to mother and make sure you do a good job. And you created a life so you can do it. See
so what's the problem, right?
Well, I'm not saying that you're never going to feel frustrated, or that sometimes when you're doing that, it's going to be a lot. But when you can manage yourself a little bit better, you can stop adding so much stuff onto this. Yes, sometimes it's probably a lot, and sometimes maybe it's not. Hey, this is just what I asked for.
Yeah.
And I created it, and I'm doing it just the way I want to be doing it. Because you just told me that. And not only that, you love your job. I mean, it's like all of a sudden, this is what happens is when your brain opens up to what you're telling yourself that's causing you your misery, then your brain opens up for you and said, oh, wait a minute here. Let's have another look.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, oh, no, I love my job. I love doing this. I love that. And that's why I'm saying is that it becomes easier to think up another thought.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
think about is, wait, I chose this and it's all great. So what's the problem?
Well, I think the problem is sometimes you're not going to like it. I mean, sometimes it's going to feel overwhelming. Sometimes
Yeah.
the kids may be doing things and you may have to calm yourself down a little bit, but it's what you want. So, I mean, if you're telling yourself, wait a minute, this is what you signed up for, sounds a whole lot better than what the hell?
Right. Right.
This is crazy and hard. And this is the mother thing. Oh, this is what I signed up for, the mother thing. That's always crazy and hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for listening to the podcast. It's so nice to meet you.
Meet you too. I love
Okay.
it. Love
I'm going to put you back.
Okay.
Okay. I hope everybody got something out of that. That was a good one. Thank you, Rena. All right. I'm going to go back to my participants, and I would love for somebody else to raise their hand. And I am willing to go over today. For those of you who would like to stay probably another 20 minutes, I can stay another 20 minutes and at least coach one more person. Let's see. I got a lot of hands up. Let's try Patricia Brandt, only because that's my mother's maiden name. So I'm going to allow you to talk. And you should be able to hear me and you should be able to talk to me. Patricia, can you hear me? Okay, and I'm going to bring you up.
Oh, I'm going to take
I'm
off my.
promoting you to a panelist. You should be able to hit your video now.
I don't know how to do that. Where's the video?
Bottom left.
Bottom left.
You can start your video. I don't think I can start it for you. Okay, forget about it. I would love to see you, but I can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry. I can't figure out how to get the video on.
Don't worry about it. I can hear you. Let's go. Tell me, what can I do to help you? You have my mother's maiden name.
I have the most difficult time kind of feeling, and I've been doing a lot of work on this. I've been listening to your podcast a lot. I think my biggest problem is not giving into the urge. And I feel like, I'm trying to think of the best. I'm trying to figure out how I can let that feeling go through me when I have like intense, especially intense frustration.
Okay.
So one example I could give is we were out to dinner with friends the other night, and it was a holiday party, and it was supposed to be fun and everything. I thought I was enjoying myself. It was really beautiful. There was beautiful music going on, and my daughter, who is 8, was kind of not behaving at the table, and this one guest there started commenting on how, oh, children really challenged at this age. And my thought was, she's criticizing, our ability to parent. She said they're always going to test. They're, but when your husband says something to her, she listens. And my immediate thought was, so she thinks my husband can control my daughter, but I cannot.
Okay.
And
all right. So let me ask you a question before you go on. I think what we'll do is we'll put this in a model.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to show you, at least I'm going to show you what you're creating.
Good. That would be good.
Well, we'll go with there because it sounds to me like what you're telling me is what the urge came from this situation.
Right.
Okay. So let's model it. Is that okay with you?
Yes.
Okay. So the circumstance is everything you told me. I'm not going to write the whole thing down, but you were out to dinner. Because in the C line, it can only be facts. So you were out to dinner. It was a holiday thing. And your daughter, what did she do?
Oh, she just started kind of talking back to us at the table, and you know, not she was being an 8-year-old.
Okay, so in the C line, we can't even put talking back because maybe she was, maybe she wasn't. We're just going to say she started talking.
Okay.
Okay, she started talking to you.
She started talking to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then one of the friends we were with started talking to me about her behavior.
Okay, so friends said, so we can put that in the C line because it happened.
Yeah.
So without me writing the whole thing down, the friend said that your husband controls your daughter better than you.
Yes.
Okay, so that's the facts, right?
Yes.
Okay, and you're out to dinner too. Don't forget that, and it's a holiday dinner, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I just want everybody to see that is a fact, and that means it's neutral. Now, what'd you think about that, or how'd you feel about that? Either or.
I felt angry. I felt anxious in the moment and frustrated.
Okay, let's go with angry. Let's pick one.
Okay.
What do you think the strongest emotion was of those three things? I'm thinking angry, but angry, frustrated, or anxious?
I think angry.
Me too. Okay. And from a -10, which is the strongest emotion you can feel, if we're looking at the emotion hunger scale, from 0, which is neutral, we know we're in the negatives because it's a negative emotion. How strong was it?
I'd say it was about an 8.
A what?
An 8. An
Okay.
8.
-8. So really strong. Okay. Why were you so angry?
Because I felt like she was criticizing my ability to parent.
She's criticizing my ability to parent. Right?
Yes.
And when you thought that thought, when you chose that thought, it made you feel almost as angry as if somebody died. I mean, you can't go any farther than a -10.
Wow.
So really strong.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you do when you felt that angry and you were at this table?
I started to, I ignored the lady. I just kind of smiled and didn't do much, but I started focusing on my daughter and trying to get her attention. And then my husband noticed and he stepped in and did something. It said to her, Charlotte, whatever. I can't even remember what he said exactly, but she stopped doing what she was doing.
Mm-hmm. So talk to daughter. My guess is that you were reacting from this thought.
Yeah.
You were trying to show that person that you could do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And then,
you were trying to prove to your friend that you're in control.
yes. And I was so not.
So talk to daughter, and really this is the truth, is to prove friend that you're in control. So we'd have to put your husband in there because that's not part of your actions. So
Yeah.
your model is always about you.
Yeah.
But tell me about the urges, because this is what the conversation was up. Okay. So what happened with eating?
So I did 2 things. I probably had more wine than I should have. And, not much, but I definitely had probably an extra, like half a glass than I would have. And I also I was planning on just having, just a little bit more of my dinner, but I probably went to a +6 or something.
Okay. Over 8.
Yeah.
Okay. Over 8. And I want you to look at your A line is you smiled at the lady, basically meaning that you you didn't tell her what's up or anything like that. You just smiled
No.
at her and stuffed it in.
Yes. And I stuffed myself instead.
There you go. I don't even have to finish the model. Yeah, but if you look at the A line, it's so interesting because in your A line, you know, you were trying to control your daughter.
Yeah.
And you drank more wine than you wanted. You overate. What else did you do? How'd you treat your husband?
Oh, I was good to my husband.
Okay.
He was trying to help me.
Okay. So you're good with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that you did that came from being so angry?
Well, I felt really bad about myself. So.
Did you believe her? Did you believe that she was telling you were a bad parent or something? Because what you started doing when you started feeling bad about yourself, did you start criticizing yourself?
I did.
Yeah.
I started criticizing myself.
Right. So you see the result of these actions?
Yes.
She's criticizing my ability to parent, and the result is you're criticizing your ability to parent.
Yeah.
And to take care of yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
You become more critical. Provide evidence for the thought. You see?
Yes.
So your original question was about urges.
Yeah. So how do I how do I let this feeling kind of go in the moment when, you know, I'm out, I'm distracted, I don't want to give in to these things. I know that I am eating or responding because I feel this way.
I don't think you do.
You don't think I know in the moment?
Mm-mm. No, I don't think you understood your model. I think you thought that the problem was the C. I don't think you realized that you had an option on how you wanted to think about it. You believed she was criticizing your ability to parent.
Mm-hmm.
What if you didn't think that? You wouldn't even have to feel angry.
Right.
So there's really two things here, because I totally get that sometimes you're going to have negative emotion and you're going to have to deal with urges. But urges come from thoughts. And I really think that what happened in this model is a model off of this is, what do you do when you feel so terrible? And your little brain says, well, there's only one thing to do. What do you do when you feel terrible? You eat.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to figure this stuff out, sometimes you can't do it till after. Like the best thing that you're doing with me right now is looking at it after the fact. Sometimes there's nothing you can do in it. You have to come back and look at it. A lot of the learning comes after the fact. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did model this the next day.
Okay, good.
So I came back and I realized, well, I think we got to a different level than I was able to get to on my own, but
Yeah.
I think I was able to kind of calm myself down, because what I would have done is thought about this constantly but it was modeling it helped me to put in its place, stop thinking about it, and not let it, upset me for the next day, kind of thing.
Let what not upset you?
Let this thought that, she was criticizing my ability to parent.
Mm-hmm. But do you believe that she was criticizing your ability to parent?
No, well, I do, but in a way, I think I don't care, in a sense, that because I know what I was trying to do, and I know.
But what if she wasn't? What if you thought something different?
Yeah.
What if you never believed that to begin with?
Well, that would have been helpful.
I know, but that's where I think it's really helpful for you right now, because it's triggering you about
Yeah.
your parenting.
Right.
She's just a circumstance here, and she's triggering your brain. It's probably not the first time you thought this thought.
Mm-hmm.
She's
Yeah.
almost like, you could just say, thank you, teacher. Thank you for helping me see that I still have this in me, that I believe that I'm not a good parent. Because what she told you is just her own model and her own thinking based on whatever's going on in her head. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
Right. And it's like, if she would have said to you, what color is your hair?
Blonde.
Okay. If she would have said, I don't like your blue hair.
I see your point. I would have said, I don't have blue hair.
I mean, like, what is your problem?
Yeah.
Like, can you not see?
Yeah.
Right. But because she triggered something in you that you actually believe at some level, that's what started this model. So at a really deep level, I would work on that a little bit, because all she's doing is showing you some of your own stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, if you believed you were totally in control, or that you were doing the best job you can, or whatever it is that you want to believe, she could say whatever she wants and you would go, what the heck are you talking about? Or you wouldn't care and you go, yeah, my husband's much better at it than me. It's fine. It's great. We're a great team. I wish, too bad you don't have a husband like me.
Yeah. No, this is really helpful. It's really good.
Yeah.
Way of thinking about it. This is really, really interesting.
Yes. And I just think it's really good for you to see is that there's urges, but your urges in this A line, because your urges are in the A line,
Mm-hmm.
and they're really coming from, the urge is thinking something's wrong with you and wanting to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And the compassion of the next day to go, you know what, you're always just doing your best with your kid. That's all you're doing, and sometimes it's better than others, but it's always your best.
Yeah.
And the worst thing that you could do, sweetheart, is to harm yourself. Like, that's not going to help.
Right.
I think a lot of people probably got something out of this. And I love it because everybody that's coming on here is not realizing sometimes that the C's and the T's are separate.
Right.
Right? Because when we're in it emotionally, we see our T's as C's. And that's what the problem is that we think we have no control over it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you, even though I didn't get to meet you. Okay, I'm going to put you back. Okay. Put her back. Okay, she's still up there, but I'm not sure. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to stop the video. I think that's what I need to do. Yeah. Oh, well. Okay. So, you guys, the time has come for me to say, I hope you got a lot out of this. I want you to sincerely think about your emotional hunger, your physical hunger, your own self-compassion for yourself, and to be able to manage your mind by learning how to model it. All of this is in my podcast. All of this is in my companion book. It's the best gift you can give yourself. And as you can see from the people that I coached, is that our C's, if they trigger T's that make us feel terrible, are just things that we get to learn more about ourselves. And I can't think of a better time than this holiday season to learn more about ourselves. because the C's are going to trigger a lot of T's. Usually that's what happens during the holidays. And how we treat ourselves is based on how we manage our minds. And can you imagine if we all walked around here thinking that we were worthy and that we were worth loving and that we were worth taking care of and that we were worth considering ourselves our biggest priority? If we had those thoughts that we believed 100%, just like we know that we don't have blue hair, can you imagine how different our actions and results would be if we believed that? So that's what I want all of you to think about as this holiday season comes. It was really a pleasure getting to talk to all of you. And I'm here as a coach, but more than anything else, I'm here to try and give this information out and a way for me to give back to you. It's really, this is part of this holiday season, is for me to give back to you. So I appreciate all of you on this call today. For those of you who had to get off, you'll still get a recording. For those of you that stuck around, you'll get a recording. And I hope you get so much out of this. So thank you, everybody. Happy holidays. If you have any questions, you can always email me. And I love you all. And goodbye.